All right, so I like to start out with a quote for most of my interviews. And I read that you listened to Blind Lemon Jefferson
Oh, yeah.
when you were in a dorm room back in the day.
Oh, God, yeah.
Still going to school. And the first time you heard him was kind of like your introduction to blues a little bit. And you said that it almost sounded like there was a demon coming out of him. And this is a guy that made music almost 100 years ago, back in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Considered the father of Texas blues. How did this guy that made music so long ago spark that connection in you?
You know, I don't know. I think for me, you know, like what I connect to in music is a lot of the emotion and kind of rawness that a performer can convey, or and that hearing that in that crappy dorm room, 18 years ago, or whatever it was, like really resonated with me for some reason. I don't know. I can't say what it was. Who's to say why you connect with something, I guess, but like that.
It just stood out to you, the passion.
Yeah, that passion that he had, and it just it was ugly, and like he didn't care, and he was just about getting this out, and that for me was what I connected with, I think.
And you played piano when you were younger too.
Yeah. Yep.
For 6 years, 8 years,
Yep.
and I know your mom used to make people play piano.
Yeah.
Not force people hey, play
I
the
mean,
piano.
as much as a mother could, my brothers and I, we all were forced to take lessons for about 8 years growing up. Yeah.
And you're the middle child.
I am.
Do you feel like that influenced you in any way? Because I'm the middle child. My older brother Matt, my younger brother Dave, and I feel like I definitely turned out differently as the middle child. I feel like if I was the older one, that's like your parents. That's like their firstborn child, and they kind of pay more attention. And I feel like the middle child is kind of borders on getting away with stuff, and that has that relationship, the dynamic that kind of bridges the gap.
Yeah, for sure. It's a funny thing. I don't think that my brothers and I were all very, very different. And I can't speak to why that is, but I will say, yeah, my older brother actually got probably paved the road for us. He broke a lot of rules in the house.
Yeah, he bulldozed out in front. He did all the bad shit.
Anything I did was like, oh well. At least it's not Jason.
Yeah.
So, by comparison, I was always probably the good son, I guess.
So, you have a background in punk rock.
Yeah.
That's not a connection that most people would make from blues music.
Yeah.
Going back in the day, but there is an energy, a passion that both of those genres share. Like you were saying before, an ugliness, but a beautiful type of ugliness, like the emotion, and the screaming.
Yeah, for sure. And I think hindsight, is 2020, and what if I was to reflect on that connection, it would be that. I think that's what it is. And also, when you're 13 years old, 14 years old, sometimes you just need to play in a punk rock band. You get a lot of angst and anger in you, and the world's out to get you. You're just pissed off. So that's.
Was that kind of a release for you back in the day?
I guess so.
Getting behind the mic or behind the drums. What were you playing back in the day?
Mainly guitar and singing and stuff like that. It was a release. It was, just sticking it to the man, or whatever cheesy cliche you want to say. We were 14 years old, and there's a community there, a great punk rock community.
You guys were playing shows
every weekend. Every weekend, yeah. And it was just always the same group of friends. 30 to 40 people there every weekend. Yeah. And it's what you did on a Saturday.
What was the community like? What was the atmosphere at those earlier shows?
It was. I felt like so. My generation was that generation was probably the younger generation of punk rockers coming out of Syracuse, and so there was this older crew, which had been around for a while, and they played in all the bigger, tougher bands, and then my generation came along, and we were probably, obviously younger, but there was always a lot of support and a lot of community and camaraderie. You get there if someone got hurt, everyone made sure everyone picked each other up and made sure they was all right, but. It was a lot of fun. And then we go down to the local burrito shop afterwards, and I'll have a burrito.
Burritos are a must.
So.
And then you moved down to the city for a while, right? From Syracuse.
I moved down in 2001.
And I know you're going to art school as well.
I was then, yeah. I moved down here to go to Pratt.
What was that like when you were studying art? Because I know you never actually studied music in the academic sense.
Yeah.
But you were studying art all that time.
Yeah, for sure. When I moved down here, I actually stopped doing music. I kind of stepped away from it. I was trying to study printmaking and just focus on that, and fell in love with it really, and I still love it very much actually. But and kind of pursued that for a good, between undergrad teaching and then graduate work. I stepped away from music probably for about 8 years, until I was living up in the Catskills and kind of had a little more time on my hands and started playing music again, I guess, and kind of rediscovered the blues and try to make it my own.
Was music present in your life in other ways, even when you weren't playing? Like, was it kind of still that background tone in your life?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you would still go to shows and things like that, and they weren't even just like the bigger shows coming through New York, definitely would go to the, like, Pratt would have the Pratt bands or whatever you want to call it, and they would be like, they'd be the equivalent of going to a punk rock show in Syracuse, a little more artsy. They used to be, warehouse parties, late into the night that would just be like thrash and art punk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
almost like a punk rock rave style thing.
For sure.
That's awesome.
A lot of bad mistakes on those nights. But
a lot of memories.
A lot of memories, yeah.
So you go back up to the Catskills after the city.
Yeah.
How does one go about learning the blues? Because there's no like blues for dummies like YouTube tutorials.
Will you'd be surprised. I look at those from time to time actually, just to reference work sometimes. But that's the nice thing about the blues and even punk rock, we'll say, is that you don't need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of those guys are all self-taught, and they're so, it was so regional what was happening back when the blues was first kind of like being discovered and written, and that there was no structure, there was no academic study behind it, and that makes it. I feel like that was part of the reason why I loved it, and part of the reason why I was able to pick up on it, I guess. Yeah.
And there's definitely a connection with blues and punk rock in the sense that, like what you were talking about before, when people pick things up themselves, they're not going to be the most technically skilled guitarists in the world, but like you still have that connection of the raw emotion.
Oh, for sure. And I'm not a good guitar player, I'd say.
Same. Definitely better than me though.
So it is something that you just kind of like, you write a melody, you become a songwriter, and then work off that, I guess.
And you took that even a step beyond, because you're a one-man band essentially.
Yes, at the moment.
And you play drums, you play guitar, you sing, you have the hi-hat going with the tambourine. You're playing everything at once. Did that come out of having no one else to play with when you first moved back to New York?
Yeah, exactly. When I kind of like started doing doing it again up in the Catskills, you're somewhat isolated up there, and my time was pretty much eaten up by schoolwork at the time, and the time that I had off, I didn't have time to find a bass player or a drummer or anything like that, so I
took it upon yourself, and I was like, all right, shit, like I'm just gonna do everything.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.